Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you the records from the remixes of the Snow Discovery campaign, precisely the reverse and checkpointless versions. Here is the first map of the campaign called Snow is Back, pretty easy in reverse, just a bit of precise driving and that's it. Usually that map is played mostly with snow car, but the car only switches by driving through the special ring and that ring stays near the very end of the map on reverse version. Well, now on the checkpointless version you won't see the snow car either, because it's faster to just keep going through the car changing ring. The map remains the same as the original version, so let's just cut the runs a bit to the end. Now let's move to the second out of the 15 tracks from the pack. Snow Discovery campaign was released together with the big game update that introduced Snow Car for the first time in TM 2020, and we also received a ton of new blocks for the editor, mainly the wooden roads, which you will see quite a lot later on here. This one was again pretty easy and simple, but the version without checkpoints has a cool trick that makes the map a bit less trivial. Also, for the first time we get to see some snow car driving. Sadly, Nadio did not give us a way to change snow car colors in the replay editor, so they might be a bit confusing. Anyway, here we go with the trick, a weird slide on the wall with the new wood support blocks grip, which makes it just barely possible to go over the hole caused by the missing checkpoint. Here we are already on the map number 3, and this is going to be the first really hardcore one. You can already tell by the fact that there is only one finisher and who that finisher is. This map was only possible with the Dragon Eat jump back to the map, and we actually have this one validated the legit way, which is pretty crazy. Alright, here we go, a huge bounce, and this is also really sick as the car just flies directly into one of the checkpoints. That's some high level precision. Once you get back to the map, the rest is a piece of cake. You take all the checkpoints the regular way and then get back the way you came from. The backtracking part is pretty boring, so let's just jump to the end with a nice lamp hit. Now the checkpointless version remains the same as the original, because removing a gate checkpoint does not create any holes in the map, but on this one nobody bothered to go for any sort of weird reactor boost tricks, so the times will be a bit behind. Moving to map number 4 now, this one has one slightly more difficult part, as you have to somehow cross the small jump transition in the opposite direction. The drivers opted to just slowly drop onto the rail and get back to the road, but I think it might also be possible to smash into the temple on the side with full speed and pray to get bounced back to the map. The remaining part is very simple, you just follow the road and try to not crash into the top of the finish. The checkpointless version is also going to be pretty tricky, as there will be one actual hole left in the map, and that complicates things by a lot. It turns out that you actually just perfectly have enough speed to crash into the opposite side of the gap and flip onto the top of the road. Being slightly rotated is mandatory to get it right, I believe, while going straight you would just full stop into the edge. Now there is another problem, because wooden road acceleration with low speeds is so garbage that you can't just easily reach the top of the uphill. For whatever reason, hugging the borders helps with that and gives small speed boosts. Very cool and logical game mechanic, Nadio, thanks. Once you climb up, you just follow the road to the finish and that's it. I love it so much that the camera on start is bugged most of the time when rendering replays. The next map, despite being called Wetwood, will not have any wetwood driving in the reverse remix. Wetwood driving is actually one of my favorite mechanics that got introduced in the game update. Maybe it gets annoying when you try to get really good at it, but for casuals like me, it's pretty fun. Checkpointless version once again remains the same as the original map, so there is no point to show the entire runs. In this matter, reverse remixes are a bit better, because you will always get a unique challenge. This map turned into a really cool one, and I was really surprised when I've seen how clean the world record looks. First tricky part is this wall bounce that transitions with a smooth landing into backwards driving over the anti-booster, and it actually continues backwards further on. Plastic and dirt are really good for backwards driving, as with each slide you can keep on building up speed. Now we are on to another obstacle, as the dirt road is not connected to the plastic platforms, but with a perfectly smooth overwall the car continues backwards with really solid speed towards the next checkpoint. Eventually the backwards driving comes to an end with a nice looking wall bounce turnaround, and now it's just simple driving towards the end. Maps like that are the reason why these remixes are so fun, and now finally the checkpointless version is going to be slightly more interesting, as we have a map that actually requires some pathfinding. For a change you want to transform your car to the snow car and then continue into the snowy scenery pieces. Once again, I have no way of changing the colors for the skins, so two of the cars have to look the same. We eventually made it back to the map, and the world record ghost is actually on the last position for now. Everything changes on the last few transitions that are necessary to go past the checkpoint hole. Moving on to another map, this one is going to be a bit more conventional. It starts pretty slowly until you reach the reactor boost, which will speed up the process of crossing the long field of slow snow. It's not a huge improvement to the map space, but better than nothing. The cars are pretty close together for now, but once they reach the last turn, everything is going to change. We can see different lines from the players and different speed outcomes, and you actually have to watch out to not overjump the finish block. This variation was maybe not so exciting, and the checkpointless one is going to be pretty similar. As you have no checkpoints, you can just start backwards and directly move towards the finish block. The gap between the world record and the rest of the podium is actually surprisingly big. It's all because of the much better entry onto the Finnish bobsleigh. Here we go with the map I was probably looking forward the most, expecting that it will get really intense the further you go. You actually don't build up nearly as much speed as on the regular one, because the booster changes to the anti-booster here, but it's still pretty fun to watch and you can feel the nervousness near the end. Sadly, we are about to get disappointed again, as checkpointless version remains without any significant changes. I just hope that the next campaigns we received will have more regular checkpoints instead of the gate ones. Also, stop using weird finish areas in your maps, it makes it really painful for me to build the reverse alterations. And while we are talking about painful things, I have a really tough map for you now. Similar situation as on the Dragon Eat map, only one person that finished the map and it's the validation run. But on this one it's not actually a Dragon Eat. This one was doable with a stadium roof jump, but this setup to get to the top of the stadium is a bit unusual. You can't do that the standard way because the corners of mapping area are blocked with scenery, but luckily there are some workarounds. For this trick you have to go outside of the stadium area and start building up some speed. Nothing really too crazy because there are 2 turns that you have to make with limited space to work with. Then you go near the edge of the stadium, use this small bump to flip your car upside down, crash into the concrete block on opposite side and hope that your car bounces to the lower layer of the stadium. The rest of the climb remains the same as always. Drive around to build up speed, use the white structures to jump up to the higher level of the stadium, and once you are there you just have to find a good spot that you can use to drop back to the track. This particular jump does not look very hard as you have a big landing area, but I did not try it myself, so maybe I'm wrong. Once you have landed, the rest of the track is pretty free. You just have to find a spot where you can enter the regular map's path. Conveniently, there is a hole in the wall in the spot where one of the checkpoints are placed. There are no surprises here, you just drive the normal way all the way up to the last checkpoint and then drive the same path opposite way until you reach the finish. As usual with maps like that, just joining back to the track is the hardest part of the run. For the contrast, checkpointless version is absolutely free. Just start backwards and go to the finish that is right next to you. It's nice to have some chill maps like that as well, but the next reverse map is going to be more demanding again. Usually starting in a ring is a bad sign because you can't just immediately follow the road, but right here you can actually really quickly enter back to the wooden section and start driving the map in reverse. Some of the transitions will not work really well in the opposite direction, so it will be a bit bumpy at times, but exactly these sections will make the biggest time differences between players. Things like anti-boosters can also cause huge time losses, so you want to avoid as much of them as you can whenever it's possible. Here we have another rough transition when leaving the water and shortly after one more anti-boost, so the map is fighting the players with all its weapons, but they still continue strongly. Going through the plastic section now, and after this checkpoint right here it is more beneficial to just respawn and go backwards, as it's just much easier to climb this small elevation change between surfaces like that. Now just the last dirt section remains, but this one should be just purely driving based, so the podium positions are pretty much settled at this point. Sadly, the time has come where we have the first map that was not finished by anyone, and it's the checkpointless version. You can easily skip a big portion of the map by starting backwards, but you eventually get stuck in front of the series of 3 holes in the road that can't be passed. My best idea was to just skip entire map completely by going to scenery and driving around on snow a bit. Then you would somehow have to cross a small gap with enough speed to also climb the uphill, but you have basically no acceleration here, so I doubt it's possible. Feel free to try to finish that map yourself, and I continue with showing you the next reverse track, which luckily is possible and also very easy to finish. On this one you just have to follow the road and drive as fast as you can. No stunts, no obstacles, no difficult tricks or path finding. Just 100% skill driving. I usually consider this type of remixes as boring ones, but I know some players actually like these maps the most, so it's good that there is mix of everything in these campaigns. What's not good is that we have another map that stays identical after removing checkpoints. I was hoping that maybe someone will come up with a shortcut of some kind, but nothing like that was found, so I'm just going to skip to the end of the map as it's not that interesting to watch. Can't say the same about our next map, as this one gets interesting right from the start. Luckily it doesn't take too much effort to get back onto the track, you only have to traverse through these stone blocks. While back on the main part of the map you can just drive the regular path for a while until you reach the very last checkpoint. The times on the podium are pretty spaced out, so you can expect some very intriguing time saves later on. The first one comes right now, as instead of just turning 180 degrees right after the checkpoint, you can jump back to the map and continue driving in reverse, already with big speed. There comes another major time save, you skip a big portion of the map with a bounce from a random stone in the scenery. And that should be all that this map has to offer, just a few more turns and you will reach the finish. Let's hop onto the checkpointless remix now, and this one will have one significant difference compared to the regular map. There is a hole in the road not so far from the start and you have to jump to the snow on the left to avoid it. What Busterino did seemed a bit accidental, but it actually gave him better speed outcome to overtake the opponents. The remaining part of the map will stay the same as on the original version, so the higher speed should snowball all the way to the finish. We have just 3 more maps to see, and get ready for the next one, as it's going to be one of the harder ones again. I Am Speed, another map that starts in a ring, and right away you can see we have only 2 runs here, one of them being the validation. Everything once again caused by the difficulties with reaching the main part of the track. The easiest way to do that is to climb a stadium roof and jump down. It's the easiest way, but not an easy way by any means. It's not any different from an usual stadium climb, so let's skip to the jumping down part. The landing area is really awful here, so even for players experienced with stadium roof jumps, it may cause some issues. AR managed to be the first one to land back onto the wooden road, and once you do that, you can just drive the normal path fully in opposite direction without bigger issues. Well, the map is still crazy fast at times and it's easy to just fly off, and that's exactly the reason why the positions swapped and Kamtish actually finished with the faster time. I think he still went really safe, but with this insane grip on wooden roads, the run looks very shaky. I'm still in big disbelief how most of the new stuff that get added to the game makes absolutely zero sense, but I guess nobody plays Trackmania to see realistic driving after all. We are approaching the end of the track, so let's switch to the checkpointless version. This map for the main path remains unchanged. Every checkpoint is a gate checkpoint, so no holes are created in the road. But the lack of checkpoints create opportunities for some shortcuts. And that's exactly what's going to happen at the end, as you can jump from the top of the uphill almost directly to the finish ring, skipping big part of the map. Bob Lover is a map that is usually played fully with snow car, but in reverse it turns into stadium bobsleigh map. I thought it's not going to be that interesting, but look at this gap between the times. I knew some crazy trick is about to happen, and there we go with a huge shortcut that skips the bobsleigh looping and gets you directly to the next checkpoint. Really well performed reactor flight by Cassandra. Nothing too crazy is happening in the remaining part of the map, but I guess if you get a shortcut like that, you just want to drive safely to make sure it does not go to the waste. Now this map in the checkpointless version is going to be one of the most difficult ones from the pack. You can see we have only 2 finishers, one of them being the validator, and surprise surprise, this is not going to be a stadium roof jump nor the dragon yeet. You just have to follow the normal path and find a way to jump over every single hole caused by the missing checkpoints. The most difficult part is probably this looping, as you have to jump onto the side, land on the scenery piece and keep enough speed to jump onto the bobsleigh section behind the looping. If you got all the way here, there is just one hole left, but this one is rather very easy to cross if you know the approach. Land on the final section and hope that you won't get stuck on the side of the car. The ending of this run is rather slow, so let's jump to the moment when finish line is crossed. We have finally reached the last map. This one only has 2 finishers, one of them being myself, which in my opinion is pretty surprising, as I don't think it's a difficult one. The hardest thing is to find a path, but if you have a replay from someone to watch, it should be rather easy to replicate. The first thing you have to do is to get back to the map, and I found a pretty easy way to do that by crashing straight into the wall near the road piece that is placed on the ground level. It was surprisingly consistent to get this bounce. Now you have to follow the normal path of the map, and I did it horribly bad, so let's skip forward a bit. We reach the part where our car gets transformed into a snow car, and that's what we will be stuck with for the rest of the run. Grab the last checkpoint, and then we will have to drop down to the grass and use the same wall bounce trick as before with the stadium car. This one is slightly more difficult to get right, but it's nothing too crazy. It only took me few attempts, but I think the more speed you gather, the easier it gets. The remaining section does not have anything interesting to offer, you just slowly make your way towards the finish. Well, you have to avoid the anti-booster, but it's not too big of a challenge. And just like that, we reached the last map I wanted to show in this video, and it's sadly a map nobody finished. There are just too many holes in the road, and the finish is placed in a spot which can't be reached in a different way. The only hope would be to get a dragon yeet directly to the very last part of the map, but good luck finding someone willing to go for that. Last thing for today, let's have a look at the standings. In reverse campaign, on first place we have Janur, on second Basterino, and on third New Nokia 3310. And for checkpointless campaign, we've got once again Janur on first, Basterino on second, and on third place Ed45, who sadly drove a lot of good records after the deadline, so I didn't show any of them in the video. Thanks everyone for playing the maps, for watching the video, and special thanks to my channel supporters. See you all in 2024. Goodbye.